Previously, I've recorded a video of how to build a wall bed from start to finish, but today I'm going to show you if you need to move that bed either to a different room or to a different house, how to take it apart in as few steps as possible to make it a little bit easier for yourself, both moving it out and moving it back in. So the first thing you'll need to do is just take the mattress out and then also remove the stopper bars from the back end of the bed frame. After that, you'll want to take off, you don't necessarily need to take off the trim all the way around the top. We did here just to make it a little easier to access because we were up really close to the ceiling. But what you really need to remove are the screws holding the trim piece inside that prevent the bed from going past flush. So you'll see I have those circled there. It really helps here if you have an assistant that can hold the bed open slightly and catch that trim piece when it falls. We didn't do that. We just unscrewed it and it fell and hit the floor. Luckily, it didn't break, but it will be better if you have somebody that can catch that piece before it falls. Then once you have that removed, the next thing you need to do is detach the pistons. You can see on my really rough drawing here that when the bed is closed, the piston there is kind of resting in place. When you open the bed, though, the pistons are under pressure and it's really hard to move them at all. So if you wanted to do this, I guess, the right way, you would take all of the panels off of the bed frame so that you could pop one of the slats out, reach through, and undo the piston from there. But we didn't want to do that. We wanted to leave it together as much as possible. So this is a kind of silly trick that worked for us. So we held the bed open just enough so that I could climb inside it and lay down on the ground. Then my assistant closed the bed the rest of the way, which actually gave me more room on the inside, and then pushed the front past flush just a little bit, which totally released all the tension on the pistons, and I could just knock them off of the little pegs and then safely, very carefully, open the door back up slightly so that I could climb back out. Obviously do this with caution. Things are very heavy and you don't want to pinch yourself, but it actually was very quick and easy for us to do it this way. Then once you're out, you can take off the pistons completely and you can remove the curved bracket that's holding the front panel to the sides. Once you get that off, you can lift the entire front panel out of place and just set it aside. You may need to take this further apart later, depending on how big your doorways are and things like that. And this is very heavy with all of it attached. But we actually left this all in one giant piece as we moved it to our new house. So next we removed one of the triangle brackets from the side panel, took it completely off just so we could get access to remove the other things we needed to. On the other side, we didn't take the whole bracket off. I just removed the bottom screws so that I could rotate it out of the way. And then in the end, we put these triangle brackets back on for the move, just so that we wouldn't lose the pieces. Next, you'll need to get access to the wall studs. So you'll need to pop off the little plastic caps on the outside that are holding the screws in place for that cross piece. Some of these caps broke when we snapped them off, using a flathead screwdriver and pliers to try to pull them off. If that happens, use needle nose pliers to try to pull the little stems out from the inside of the screw so that you can get them completely out. And in some cases, we couldn't even do that and just jammed the drill in there to get the screws out. This was a little bit tedious, but we got it to work. And then once you remove that panel, you'll be able to remove the wall anchor screws and move the bed away from the wall. Before you lay it down, once it's away from the wall, I would reattach that cross piece just so you have some extra support. Again, these are really, really heavy and you don't want to strip or break any of the points at the corners. Once you have it attached, very carefully, you can lay the whole thing down flat on the front. And if your doorways are wide enough to move it out of your house like that, you can. Our hallway had tight corners and that piece was too big, fully assembled for us to move out. So unfortunately, we did have to continue taking apart all the other popping off the caps from the sides and removing all the other bolts so that we could break this apart into separate pieces. As I took things apart, I labeled them with frog tape and a Sharpie so that I knew which piece was what and which side was the front for things that weren't clear. That just made it much easier to rebuild it when we got to the other house. Then you'll want to loosen the cams and remove the front trim piece at the bottom. We didn't bother pulling out all the wood pegs and things like that were stuck in there really tightly. We were moving this ourselves, so we were confident that we wouldn't lose them on the way. But you may want to count your hardware pieces to make sure you have everything you need to rebuild it on the other end. If you do have to disassemble the front panel, you can. You'll just have to grab in the middle of one of the slats that's blocking the screws and the brackets and just yank it really hard to pop it out of place. And then you can take apart any of those screws and brackets that you need to, and then lift to remove the panels off of the metal frame. So once we got to our new house, just a little quick slideshow of us rebuilding it here. We had some custom built-in cabinets that we actually cut out the middle section of so that we could stick this bed right in the middle. It happened to be just the perfect size. So building it back together was basically just like my other video of building it from scratch, except we got to skip lots of the steps because we already had big chunks of it put together. So we got it in the new house, and it works great. So it's definitely doable to move one of these to another house. If you have any questions, please post, and I'm happy to answer. Thanks.